Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith and I'm excited today to be unboxing a game called Brook City. This was designed by Adam Sadler and Brady Sadler from Blacklist Games. It's a cooperative game of blockbuster cop action for 1 to 4 players. For those individuals that are unfamiliar with cooperative games, those can be played solo. This is a perfect example of one of those types of games, so how about we take a look at the back of the box, find out more about what this game is all about, and then we're going to take a look at the components inside. Welcome to Brook City, officer. Brook City is a cooperative board game for 1 to 4 players designed by Adam and Brady Sadler. The game features highly detailed miniatures and the modular deck system, better known as MDS. Now, this deck system came into play and was introduced with Street Masters. For those of you that are not familiar with that particular game, I did a full showcase here on the channel for Street Masters, so if you want to go check that out, you'll get a better understanding of how that MDS works, and that definitely plays a huge part in how Brook City was developed and plays. In this particular game, players are going to take on the role of heroic cops inspired by classic action movies and are tasked with protecting the city from the recent rise in criminal activity. And each game is dictated by the chosen criminal deck and case deck. So these decks are modular, and different combinations of these decks create unique experiences each game. So that replayability factor is going to be very high in that you can interchange, mix, and match these decks together. The game is played on a beautifully illustrated board of the city where the cops must run or drive to various locations and bust up crimes. While cops start the game with a standard issue Brook City Police Department cruiser, they can also commandeer many other types of vehicles on the streets of Brook City, very similar to Grand Theft Auto. That's all today, officer. Hit the streets and bring down the Syndicate before the mayor decides to make this a federal matter. And just before we go ahead and take off the box lid, find out what's inside, I just want to show you the box contents labeled right here. We got 66 miniatures, 403 cards and 17 dividers, 1 game board, 6 dice, and 190 tokens. If you want to see the breakdown of the miniatures or the cards, are all labeled right there in the bottom right of the screen. Also, this gives a nice layout of what roughly the game will look like, but we are going to actually take a look at those components right now. The first thing you're going to notice when you open up the box is the Brook City Rulebook, which looks like a file folder or confidential one, but this is in fact the rulebook, and it just has that nice styling to it. Looks like an actual police case that you're kind of opening up, which is pretty awesome. Brook City Police Department, this is a notice or letter from the actual police chief, so you can pause the screen if you want to read this. Again, we move right into the overview objective game components section here, which we talked briefly about on the back of the box. Good to ensure you have all the pieces you need. In terms of the layout of the rulebook here on the card breakdowns, makes things really easy to understand the different cards and also what's on them, the iconography, all that laid out really nicely here. Good use of white space. It's not crowded, it's not massive walls of text, and there's lots of pictures and illustrations in here that really is thematic, so I like that a lot. Now, this actual rulebook comes in at a total of 18 pages, so it's not going to take you a long time to consume. The game setup here actually is 8 steps to get all the components to the table. Of course, remember, we have that whole situation with different modular decks being involved, so you will be able to kind of have a unique experience with the decks that are prepared in this particular setup stage. But 8 steps is not bad at all to get to this type of situation on your table. Once you've got the game set up, you're moving into the rules. So of course you need to learn streets, spaces, locations. So all that stuff's important. Intersections, water, adjacency, all those rules are labeled out right here. So as you move through the rule book, you'll get into further rules as it kind of layers itself on over and over, all the keywords you need to know, the additional rules, some of the tokens and what they do. So all this is really nicely laid out, and even the encounters and the dice faces all in here as well. So everything you need to know. And once we get to the very back of the rule book, you start getting into some additional rules that are kind of highlighted as very important. So stress, hunches, leads, resistances, things like that. And then you move into a little bit of advertisements in terms of other expansions you can pick up for Brook City to actually enhance your experience. You can actually go ahead and pick up Delta Keys, Velocity, the Sixth Cycle. There's other products that are involved in expanding this, which is pretty awesome. And then on the very, very back, you've got the actual procedure. So your whole procedure for dice faces as well is what it says right here. For each encounter they perform, the active cop resolves these steps in the following order. So a nice reference there for one of the portions of the game. So again, 18 pages, not terrible. Should be able to get through that pretty quickly. Now this one here is throwing me for a loop. I'm not sure what this is for. My guess is it could be for cards, but I'll have to double check this, but it looks like it's a card holder. So I'm going to go with that. I could be wrong, but you've got one of these in there. If I am wrong, someone in the comments can let me know. So I've gone ahead and grabbed a number of miniatures straight out of the box below here. So this will give you a good idea as to some of the sculpts that you'll see inside the game. There's of course an entire tray behind this of more miniatures. Some of them are duplicates of the one you're seeing here, and some of them aren't even in my hand. So if I go back to this actual tray here behind me, you'll see there's a large amount of miniatures here in this first tray, and there was a nice protective plastic cover over top of all of them that I had to remove before I could actually access them. So if you're planning on painting them, you can be sure that they'll be kept very safe inside of that housing. Next up, we have 3 token sheets within the game, and they're very, very colorful, if you can see that on screen. Plus on top of that, they are also a little bit larger than average size, which I do really like because they're easy to see the iconography on these tokens. So we got this first sheet here. They are double-sided, which is great. And we'll move on to this next one here. It looks like it's got badges and some cases. This is also double-sided as well. And lastly, more for what I'd assume would be making arrests. This is likely has to do with health, would be my guess. And we'll flip this over to the opposite side. It is again double-sided. So those are the 3 punch boards you're going to have to get through. This is a top-down look at Brook City. The game board itself, you'll notice here that we've got lettering from A all the way down to T. Still unfamiliar with what that exactly is, but if you want to know, this is exactly the same on the left side of the board as it is on the far right, which we'll take a look at in a second. Along the bottom here, we have a track which runs from 1 all the way down to the other end at 31, and then the exact same track along the top from 1 to 31. So I'll be learning more about why there's kind of 2 on each of the sides that are duplicated, but I am very curious as to what that all entails. Plus, you can see from where your vantage point is right now, all the different locations in Brook City. You might be able to pick out some of the names on some of these places as well, like for instance Jeb's Bottle Shop, or we have the Capitol Hotel here, or we have pharmaceuticals over here. We actually have the Brook City Police Department right here. We've got obviously a river going through here from the yacht club, and you've got bridges across on either side, so that's quite interesting as well. I'm going to zoom in on a couple of these locations so you can see them a little bit more up close. So there's a more up-close look at the Brook City Post Office, Pop's Pastries, and the Brook City Police Department. A couple examples from the right-hand side of the board, we have the Brook City Morgue, the Nightscape Theater, Connor's Pub, Pip's Fool Shop, Riverside Shopping Mall, Binford County Courthouse. Across the river here, we have a pharmacy, Capitol Hotel, Hawks Pub, and Lockwood Art Museum. And this is a look at the far right-hand side of the map. This has the A to T side again, duplicated from the opposite side, and you can now see a better look at all the different locations on this side of the board as well. We only covered a handful from here and from here, but there's a whole bunch on the outskirts as well that we didn't actually take a close look at. Once the game board has been removed, you're going to see a whole bunch of components to go through. You're going to see different types of cars, some that are colored, some that are not. You're going to see different types of boats. You're also going to see motorcycles up here in the top left. We're going to take a look at all these up close. There is one character here in the middle. There's also some really, really thematic cards that I really like the look of right off the top. Some dice, some stands here. We're going to take a look at all these components up close. So here's an up-close view of the 4 colored police cars within the game. So I wanted to show you the different angles on those. Again, like if you're into painting and things like that, you'll be able to just go ahead and go to town on these. You could also technically replace these types of cars with like Hot Wheels cars if you really wanted to. I don't see any reason why you couldn't. The only restriction that could potentially impede that idea is if they take up too much space on the actual game board. But I have heard that the playmat for Brook City actually is quite a bit larger and might allow for that type of gameplay. If it does, that would be a pretty cool swap out to proxy for. The motorcycles that come inside the box actually have clear stands on them to ensure that they actually lay flat when you're using them during gameplay. And here's an up-close view of the different cars and boat models that come inside of this game. And just so that you guys are aware, there are 2 of each of these inside the core box. You can expect to find a large number of bases. Most of them are black, a handful of them are blue, and then there's 1 red. There is 1 lone miniature at the very bottom of the box, which might be a duplicate of the miniature tray or from the miniature tray that we saw earlier, or it could be a completely brand new hero that I haven't seen yet. But either way, there is 1 individual in this tray, and it sits just right in here like so. The dice inside of Brook City are fantastic looking. They're extremely well done. The icons on them are very, very easy to see. They pop very, very well, and they just look great all around. So I'm very, very happy with these particular dice. And if you're familiar with them from Street Masters, they're the same quality, if not better. All right, it's time to look through the cards in this game, and there are quite a few packs we have to get through. I'm going to show you some of the backs of these cards before we flip them over. Again, I'm not going to be able to speak to much of this yet until I become more familiar with the game, but obviously the backs of the cards give away the fact that they relate to particular characters and are probably going to be organized in that fashion, although in the pack they're kind of split up quite a bit. But it's going to be very, very easy if it's the case to just merge them all together in the appropriate decks for each of the different characters. So we have a bunch of cards here. I'll go through strictly for the artwork mainly. You can also take a look down below if you want to see more about the abilities that may or may not mean as much. But one thing I am liking right off the top is how much of the actual card uses artwork, and it really does pop. It looks really, really good. And I like the fact the focus is on that. This is actually really cool. The artwork is already they're just nailing the artwork. So I love the feel and the look so far. These, I don't know if they are character or individuals or suspects you're going after. Some of these relate to vehicles as well, obviously. So that's pretty cool. All kinds of different artwork. Some of it looks like there's a couple that are the same. So, oh yeah, there's the different. So now we're finding out the names of all the different vehicles that we have below. So that's pretty cool. All the different civilian vehicles we can potentially take and use. Keep them close, fast talker, let them talk, stakeout. I really, really like it. I like what I'm seeing here. It's very cool. Definitely nails the feel of what they're going for based on the front of the box. So, looks good, looks good. Physical training, gut feeling. There's your cruiser that you start off with. Wow, so there's quite a bit of cards in this deck, and there's some duplication here as well. So these could potentially be the main decks of cards that the player starts with, would be my guess. I'm not 100% sure, but looks like that could be the case. So that is one of the decks of cards, and as you can see, it's quite sizable. This one came from this compartment down here on the bottom left. The next deck of cards looks like this, and it's actually a lot less in terms of what's inside of it. This is coming from the compartment right down there. And what I'm noticing about this one is the fact it's made up of 2 different individuals, and I think this is the character which we just pulled out from the center of the bottom of this box right there. So I think that is maybe a special edition character, a character that kind of got added in late in the Kickstarter or something along those lines. But these appear to actually be possibly the actual individuals you could be controlling, which is why you're seeing a couple cards that are duplicated throughout some of these different decks. So if you go through this, you'll start to see some cards that are duplicated. So again, I'll have to learn how that all works, but basing my thoughts off of what I know from Street Masters, this makes perfect sense in terms of the investigators, I'm guessing they're called inside of this game, or the officers. So that's pretty cool. And again, the artwork is fantastic. Really, really like it. It fits the theme perfect. Now this deck makes it super obvious as to what it is. It's the criminal deck. I don't know if the whole thing will be the criminal deck, but that could potentially be my guess. Look at that, Mickey Scott, that's awesome. So there's going to be so many hidden little gems hiding inside of these cards, guaranteed as you go through this, whether it's individuals you know from the company that actually created this game, as well as just memes that you've seen on the internet, all that kind of stuff. They've really kind of gone the extra mile to make this very, very, and of course it obviously will bank on movies as well. So there's case cards in here. These look really, really cool. I love the artwork on this stuff. It's so awesome. So I'm just kind of going through here, enjoying every second of this. Now I'm looking at what I believe to be the back side of these cards, because it looks like, yes, there's a lot of file folders and a lot of about Gus, apparently. So there's a lot going on here. Okay, let's flip this over and see what it's like on the opposite side. Now I'm not going to hit on these for too long because there might be something here that could be spoilerish. I wouldn't assume so, but if we want to look at it just from the standpoint of understanding the iconography and the layout of these cards, they are very uniquely laid out, and they certainly focus more so on nailing the theme and the feel of what it's like to actually, you know, they've got the notepads going on as part of the style with pictures laid on top with like little, oh, that's so cool, pinned to everything. And then there's tape on some of the cards. It's awesome. Very, very cool. I like it. I like it a lot. Lester Nelson, Spitfire, Gus Ferguson. And of course, I might be skipping the odd card every now and then because these are freshly made cards, so some of them are right up against each other. So I'm trying my best not to do that as much as possible because I might miss the odd card, but every once in a while one just sneaks underneath, sometimes more than one. But yeah, very, very happy. I mean, there's a lot of cards here. So if you're looking to sleeve this game, yeah, you're gonna need a decent pile of sleeves. There's quite a bit of cards in this. Definitely a decent amount. I think it was 409 if I remember correctly. So that's quite a bit. So that's a pretty cool picture there. There you go. So there's a setup card, for instance. So if you're actually going to go up against Gus, I guess this would be the setup card. So many things. And this goes back to that whole modular deck system. And that's one of the coolest parts about Street Masters and what made it so quick and easy to set up a game, and the fact that you could just go into these decks once you have them organized into the appropriate categories and literally just pick the different decks at random and create your own unique experience, and the replayability really is there. Next, we're going to take a look at some lead cards as well as some criminal deck cards that are all mixed into this gigantic pile here. So we'll flip this over and take a look at some of these. So this one's paid by the hour. Looks like these are event cards mixed in. We've got ourselves crime menace cards, dress to kill events. So events to deal with, crimes going on. These could be per individual. I really, really can't wait to learn what the heck these things actually are, but they look so cool. The Slade Harper, so again, different types. So this is considered a actual operation. That's interesting. And then we've got the corporate interests here, the concerned neighbors, stiff drink, quick drink, recruiting dealers, boosting sales. So many cards, so many possibilities. And like I said, they look great. They look great. I'm very, very happy. And I am skipping the odd card here and there because there's a lot in my hand and I don't want to drop them. There's quite a bit, but I want to give you guys a good overview of the types of cards you're going to see inside this box. So many. Using the airwaves, inside contacts, bandits. I'm going to skip a whole bunch there. There's just so many, like it just keeps going and going and going. These decks are massive, and I'm really interested in seeing this next pack. And why am I interested? Because they always do an incredible job of providing dividers inside of their games that have lots of cards. This is something that I really, really love. They did this with Street Masters, and it was huge for organizing things because, as you can see, once you start going through all these decks, having the availability to just quickly go right to the vehicles in order to find them using this particular card in front of them is perfect. And then you have them per case. You put cards underneath of them. You know, they have dividers for each one. For each individual officer is going to have one. You've got some of them for the different criminal decks are in there as well. Like this, I love this. They need to keep this up. This is something that a lot of other people need to start doing out of the box from the beginning when they happen to have these types of games that involve this many cards. And there's lots of them out there. and this needs to become a more standard practice. I really do appreciate when dividers are included in the base game. And just when you thought you were done with the cards, there was another deck underneath, another huge one. Again, has them all broken out per person, and now that we know we have those dividers, we can easily break everything out nicely. Again, these are just going to be different sets of cards, so we've got all kinds of other cards to take a look at for artwork and for the different characters involved in the game, the different cops. So the artwork is going to be different across each of them, and then some will be doubled up as we saw from before. So that's just cannot wait to get this thing organized and give it a shot, see what it's all about. I really enjoyed Street Masters. It was quick, easy to get to the table, and was a lot of fun to play. And I really want to see what's happened with Brook City and what they've kind of moved on with, and what's, obviously they've moved some things over from Street Masters like the decks and things like that, but I really want to see what kind of mechanisms they have going on inside this game beyond that, to see what they've kind of built upon, because I really do like that modular deck system. It's great for teaching people. It's also great for kind of going into a random situation that you can kind of tailor completely randomly or selectively by literally choosing exactly who you want to go up against type thing. So it's great to have that choice and not be forced into scenarios per se. So yeah, lots of good cards here. And again, if you're going to sleeve, you're going to want to get some sleeves ready because there is a lot here. And that's going to wrap up the unboxing for Brook City. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, keep on rolling solo.